Hello, I'm Tegan Taylor and I'm here at the office of the Queensland Chief Health Officer, Dr Jeanette Young, to talk to her and her Victorian counterpart, Professor Brett Sutton, about what it's like doing their jobs, especially over the past year. Jeanette, most people remember March 2020 as sort of the turning point. We were, in a pandemic, but is there a date or time that really sticks out to you that this was going to be a world-changing pandemic?
It was the 3rd of January when we first heard from the Chief Medical Officer. So that's when I first heard there might be a problem. And then over days, that rapidly escalated.
What about you, Brett? Was it as early as the 3rd of January?
It was a dawning realisation for me. There was a posting on ProMed Mail, that peer-sharing scientific site, that I think had flagged it very early in January. We were already talking about it, but over days it became clear that it was more than your average, disease that passes from animals to humans. It was that cluster of serious pneumonia cases with, clear potential to be passing between humans. So it had that SARS feel about it, which makes your heart sink for sure.
Jeanette, has it been hard in the past to explain what your work is? I think it's pretty self-evident now, but before 2020, how did you explain that to people?
So as someone said to me this morning, I'm not sure I want to be remembered like this, I'm the face of disasters in Queensland. So if there's a cyclone or a flood or a fire or contaminated water or lead problems, I'm the person who's been out there for the last 15 years. So it wasn't that difficult to then take on this increased role to really get the messages out about the pandemic.
So, Jeanette, you're the longest serving Chief Health Officer in Australia, if I've got that right, 15 years. Did you do more public announcements in the first 15 years or in the past 15 months?
Oh no, it's been the past year. I mean, day after day, 7 days a week, getting out there, getting those messages. Of course, it's been more than any other time in my career. Thank goodness, because I wouldn't want to do this non-stop, as we've had to do. But it's been critical. It's been really, really important. And I did bring part of it on myself in that I didn't want other spokespeople in Queensland because it was such a complicated message. And my view was that even if you had subtle changes in that message, it would confuse people even more. So that's why I ended up having to do so much media, and that was actually my own fault.
And then also you've been fronting the media, both of you, so consistently. Has that attention followed you? Are people like walking up to you on the street and stuff now? I know everyone knows that you've been on bedspreads. Like, what's up with that, honestly?
I'm not buying them. My family's not buying them, thankfully. It's a crazy world in many respects. We shouldn't be surprised by it. We've seen public health figures globally thrown into the spotlight. That puts them in a good light, it puts them in a bad light, and the very pointed attention brings the best and worst out of people in many respects. To the extent that amplifies a good public health message, I'm very happy to carry it. But it's a crazy world. I'm very happy to do selfies. I'm very pleased to see those public expressions of support that I get walking down the street. I'm also cognizant that people have been hurt through this pandemic, that the decisions that I've made, that others have made, have implications for people's financial and employment situation and how their business is doing. And I understand the hurt and anger that sits behind people's perception of me as well. I'll carry the good with the bad because it's all part and parcel of that difficult decision making.
What about you, Jeanette? Do you have a memorable experience with a member of the public?
Lots and lots. They've been fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And it is really lovely that people come up and they talk to me. And yes, as with Brett, I've made some decisions that I know have caused enormous problems for people, and people knew that. So they came up to me and said, look, what you had to do with aged care was really hard, that they couldn't be visitors, but you've saved lives, and we're so glad you were prepared to make that decision, and they didn't need to, so they could support those families and work with them.
So as Chief Health Officers, you're talking heads to many people, but you're also human beings. Jeanette, how did you take care of yourself during what must have been like the most hectic year of your life, surely?
There were a lot of advantages because I went through the last pandemic and I sat down with my husband and said, we're not doing it that way again.
SARS?
That was awful. No, that was
Swine flu.
H1N1 swine flu in 2009, which was just a warm-up act compared to what we've been facing the last 12 months, but it was quite bad enough. So we made a few decisions at home. Our kids were older, which made it so much easier. And I started exercising. I'm not a great exerciser, but I took my own advice, 30 minutes every morning, and it's made an enormous difference.
And Brett, you spent a lot of time in lockdown. What were some of the things you really missed as a human being?
Oh, human contact. It was, it was a collective trauma for Victoria, not having the kind of interactions that as human beings we all want to have. So missing my mum, missing my brother, who obviously live separately. I had my family at home. That was the key thing for me. But, the social interactions that are part and parcel of normal life were not available to us in Victoria for some weeks. It was a really, really long haul. I guess I had the advantage that I could go in for those press conferences. I was meeting with people for that purpose alone. At times I would have rather been at home with my family on many of those occasions than fronting up for work. And my family were my absolute rock through that period. But it was one of the toughest times of my life, no questions.
So coming sort of to looking behind to looking forward, Jeanette, what do you think this coming year looks like?
Well, this is the year of the vaccine. I absolutely believe that we've got to encourage and insist that close to 100% of our adults get vaccinated as soon as possible. That's critical. And we'll probably need to have another dose after we've had the first 2 doses to manage the new variants that are developing, but that's no problem. That'll work out beautifully because they've already developed these vaccines in an amazing time frame, which has been so good. They'll then modify those vaccines. So this is going to be the year of the vaccine.
Yeah, absolutely the same. We have a pathway out of this. It's not perfect. There won't be a perfect vaccine out there. But the alternative we've seen play out in other countries, and we should be so thankful that we're coming from a place of zero community transmission to be able to get really high level, broad and effective coverage of our population to protect them and to change the dynamics of transmission so that if we get cases, it won't sweep through in the way that we've seen in other places in the world. That's a real privilege for Australia, and it is our pathway out of here.
Brett Sutton, Jeanette Young, thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us.
Delightful.
Thank you.
Thank you.